Hey, Pat and Doug here with another episode of the Wealthy Gym Owners. And today we're going to talk about the owner's weekly schedule. Something that seems to be a little bit of a mystery to a lot of gym owners as they try to move from operator to owner. So, Doug, this is kind of a hot topic. Let's dig into it.
Yeah, I think this is if you're in that stage where you are growing and offloading some of the training hours, there's always this, I call it like the messy middle where you're still training a decent amount, let's say 10 to 20 hours a week, but it's like, what do I do? Maybe I have a little bit of help. So what do I actually do? What is the highest ROI activities for the time that I'm not spent training? So that was kind of the angle that I wanted to take with this. And I know you recently chatted about it in our coaching group, so I figured we'd bounce some ideas around.
I think back to this. So, a lot of the people checking this out would know Vince Gabriel, who was a client, a franchisee, all that stuff. And I remember when he moved out of being the on the floor guy, he was like, "Yeah, I don't have to do anything really till 11. I have marketing on my calendar." And he just had a block on his calendar that said marketing. It's like, I don't really know what to do with that. And I'm like, I mean, this is common. I've been hearing this sort of thing for now. I guess that would have probably been 10 or 12 years ago that I heard, maybe at least 12 years ago that I heard that from him. So yeah, it's been something that plagued people who made that jump because I mean, we kind of default to the way that we normally operate, the way we normally behave. So, what's your kind of, I guess, place to start when somebody's wanting to make this shift with how they should be spending their time?
Yeah. So I mean, in my eyes, the highest ROI activity we do off of the floor is a combination of like two things: implementing your marketing plan and following up with leads that are coming in from that marketing plan. So I think as much as there's operational things to improve in a business, and that's certainly going to be a requirement at some point, the operational side, the team side of things, I'm the first to admit those are number three and number four compared to lead gen and lead follow up. So, the once we're clear of, okay, I'm going to be training during these hours, but getting clear each week of what the blocks are that you do have open. And like you said, not putting a category to it, but more specifically, and that's why we're obviously big fans of the marketing plan, because now instead of saying marketing, I can go look at my marketing plan and say, oh, I haven't scheduled out these emails and texts for the offer yet. So on Tuesday from 9 to 10, I'm going to go through and tweak the emails, edit them up, and get them in the queue and scheduled. That would be obviously a pretty high ROI because we're sending out offers to our list. The one that's recurring every day that I think we probably at this stage need to spend even more time on is mastering your follow-up. So I coach our Project 500 clients to block off 30 to 60 minutes every day, Monday through Friday, every day, just like you would block off a training session, you block off lead follow-up, because lead follow-up, if you're doing it right, is one, hopefully you're getting new leads in every day, even if it's just one, right? A lead a day is kind of I don't want to say the bare minimum, but that's like the first target is get a lead a day. So you have a new lead coming in, and then obviously you have all these leads that are in the pipeline of maybe they haven't responded yet, maybe they did respond, and then you need to reach back out to kind of nudge them, right? So that's not something you can batch. That's not something you can just do like on Fridays or once a week. It's definitely a daily activity, and I don't recommend offloading that in most of these growth stages because it's such a vital part of the business.
Well, I love the way that you talked about the calendar piece of this, and I know I talk about this a lot with clients when they're our clients when they're trying to change behavior because I'm a big fan of kind of pulling from something we're already good at. And if you're moving off the floor, previously you've been on the floor, you've had a scheduled appointment with somebody, you had a pretty good bit of clarity on what you were going to do on that, like during that appointment. You knew who you were going to train, just like we know who we're going to follow up with. You knew what the program was going to be, just like we know what we're going to execute for follow up. And so, if we can use the same kind of framework that we use to train clients, but then just plug in a different target market or a different audience that we're doing something with, and the different action or program, if you will, then it should be a little bit more of a natural transition.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like we know, there's so many analogies to how you treat your clients and how you would, to some degree, treat yourself here as a business owner, hold yourself accountable. And obviously, hopefully you have a coach that assists with that. But as entrepreneurs, we don't have bosses. So I've always thought of the planner as my boss, right? And so if we plan it out ahead of time, and a common question I get is like, okay, I know I need to plan, but I don't know exactly what I should be planning. And that's where it's like, okay, so lead follow up every day, recurring. And then I think we have a resource in our coaching program that's basically like the one activity a day for marketing, right? The one hour a day for marketing. And so all of us have an hour a day to devote to marketing and sales, whether that happens to be at noontime because you're coaching mornings and nights, or that happens to be in the mornings because you're only coaching the afternoons, vice versa. We all have an hour. And so the key is how do you spend that hour, right? So I think 30 minutes of it, if I only had an hour, I'd be time blocking 30 minutes for lead follow-up and 30 minutes for lead gen. And those lead gen activities that I can control are going to be sending out the offers, my offers to my email and text list, right? I'm going to always be having a list of former clients, former trials, people that I can reconnect with to check in with them and see how they're doing, see if I can extend an invitation for them to come back. And then are there people out in the community that I want to connect with, right? Is there a local therapist that I want to reach out to see if they want to come in and do a workshop? Is there somebody that's a member of the chamber that I think would be a great spot for a business visit or a fishbowl, right? I'm going to proactively have that on my planner each day to say, hey, I'm going to message this person. I'm going to reach out to that person.
So one of the more common things we've seen over the last few years is more and more people are leveraging paid advertising when it comes to growing their business. So when it comes to that, whether you're doing it yourself or you're leveraging an outside provider, well, let's start with the outside provider, then we'll flip back to do it yourself. Where does that fit into your calendar? Is there a standing appointment every week? How do you manage that? Because I know that's the approach you take.
Yeah. So if you're having an outside, like an agency, do your ads, whether it's us or somebody else, I like a once a week check in with whoever's doing it for you, right? Now, hopefully, like we do, we're proactively reaching out to the client each week saying, hey, here's how your ads are performing, because things can change pretty quickly. They can either go up and accelerate, or they can go down and get stale. And so being able to look at that each week and not change just for the sake of change, but metrics will be able to tell you if the ad is still performing, or if you need to put a fresh coat of paint on it, if you need to try new creative, whatever. So definitely once a week looking at that. And then ideally, depending upon budget, those ads are bringing in leads every day. And so the lead follow-up of that, you can certainly we build in automations for our clients that kind of start the process, but we're the first to be proponents of bolting on manual follow-up in addition to the automated follow-up. So again, every day is going to be lead follow-up.
Yeah, I think it's a whole different episode for us to talk about where you find the rhythm between automation and personal. But yeah, I mean, daily with that. And then if for some reason you're choosing to manage like your own ads, then that's a daily thing. Like you need to get in there and do that daily, just like you do lead follow up. But so the recurring theme I'm seeing is everything's on the calendar or everything's in the planner, and there's a lot of specificity to what it is. It's not just a category, that there's some detail. And yeah, you mentioned the beauty of the monthly marketing plan is it gives you the detailed stuff to do. You just have to kind of plug it into the planner.
Yeah, for sure. And I think this isn't necessarily a planning episode, but I think it's really important to understand like how you like to plan. For example, using clients' programs as an example, we still have very successful gyms that use pen and paper or Excel spreadsheets with their program Some people like to display it on a TV. Some people like to put it on an app and an iPad. And to be honest, like that's not going to change. It's the coaching that goes behind that, right? That's not going to change the quality of the experience a lot. It's more, what do you and your team prefer? Just like with you, with your, whether we're talking marketing efforts or any biz development, like I'm still very much a paper planner guy. And so I mean, I have a Google Calendar for all of our appointments that get booked online, but I still manually pull that over to my paper planner because that's the system I like. It doesn't mean it's the system everybody likes, but I think finding something that you're actually going to use every day and check every day, that's the key. And again, just like you would schedule training sessions with clients, all of these activities are getting scheduled.
So we've got at least 5 hours a week. We talked about kind of how to allocate that time for marketing, for follow up. So let's say that we've done a great job. We've calendared that. We've got the detail we need. We're good at executing that. Let's move to ops team. What's next?
So, in regards to team, because that is something that can get away from you if you're growing off of the training floor, I would certainly want to schedule some type of check in weekly with the team, right? So, there's going to be hopefully some organic check in, but I do want a recurring check in with the team. Now, if it's just a single person, then that can be an individual meeting. We call them 515 meetings. It's five questions, 15 minutes. They fill out a form ahead of time and we review that form. It's not as structured like we're reading from the form, but it's kind of a prompt each week for us to check in. The key with those, in my opinion, is that they're the same time, same day, every week. It's not like, oh, let's sit down for 5 minutes and catch up. That can happen too, but at minimum, it's, hey, I'm going to meet with Coach Tom every Tuesday at 10 o'clock. And that's his one-on-one time. So he knows it. I know it. It's on the calendar. If you have more than 3 or 4 team members, we're big fans of weekly team meetings. Again, same time, same day. And those are your practices. Those are your role playing. And that happens at the same time, same day, every week. Those are the cornerstones for the team side of things. For operations, the default I go to operations is like the actual client experience itself, right? So things that you might need to schedule or things that you might need to audit, I think operations they need to be audited. So examples would be, what is your client onboarding system, right? Do I need to block off time to either build it out if I don't have one, or and start to implement it, or do I need to audit what the current system is? And then as they get onboarded, we get into things like what are we doing for accountability? What are we doing for session quality or session standards? And just blocking off time to audit those.
Nice. So that I think that adds a lot of detail to where we're at. And I mean, you can keep inching your way back and okay, I'm an owner now, I've got a manager, that sort of thing. But that's not usually the first bottleneck here, right? Like the bottleneck is, how do I transition myself from being an on the floor trainer, on the floor coach, to operating more like an owner, more like a leader in my business. So is there anything else that you'd like to add, or any other detail to this that you think is really important?
The last thing I would say is, at this stage where you're still doing almost everything, you're just doing less of it. Sales is the engine that keeps this business going. And so ultimately, everything we're driving towards is to increase sales, right? On the marketing and sales side, right? The client experience side is retention, but in regards to, okay, I'm gonna map out time for lead follow up. I'm gonna map out time for these marketing strategies. That is so that you can get more people in your door. So being very clear and frankly holding yourself to a standard of how many sales appointments you want a week. Obviously, those take time, right? So it's usually not an availability issue at this stage, right? You should be the one doing the sales at this stage, but not just creating a bunch of busy work and that results in no consults, right? The goal of that marketing and sales is to drive X number of consults a week. So using that, I would say, is like, if we're asking the question, how do we know if this is working, or kind of measuring ourselves? I'm measuring based upon the number for marketing and sales activities. I'm basing it off of the number of new people that I meet with. That would be how I would measure the success of this.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, the only reason that we have a team or anything like that is because there's more demand than we individually can or at least want to supply. And so we have to keep driving that demand if we want to be able to support that type of business. So now I think this was a great and really valuable topic because that's what so many owners in our world here aspire to, right? They love the coaching. They love that's what got them into this, but eventually they want to have a little more autonomy, a little bit more freedom, or at least flexibility so that they can still do some of that, but also have a life outside of the gym. So great stuff. Appreciate it as always. And that's another episode of the Wealthy Gym Owners with Doug and Pat signing off.